Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Abhishek Mahajan, coming up in the next hour. Sectarian clashes escalate in Syria's predominantly Druze region of Sweda a day after ceasefire announcement. Ukraine seeks new round of talks with Russia next week. Zelensky says that the Russian side should stop hiding from decisions. Japan head to the polls on Sunday in a tightly contested upper house election. Rising prices and immigration concerns threatening to weaken Prime Minister Ishiba's power grip. Dozens dead after tourist boat capsizes in Vietnam due to storm Vifa. The third typhoon to hit the South China Sea this year is projected to make landfall along Vietnam's northern coast early next week. Astronomer CEO Andy Byron resigns after Coldplay concert Embrace goes viral. In the latest updates from Syria, Druze fighters have pushed out rival armed factions from Sun City or Sweda on Saturday after the government ordered a ceasefire following a US brokered deal to avert further Israeli military intervention. Syria's security forces have begun deploying in Sweda, where heavy fighting between Druze and Bedouin armed groups and government forces has left hundreds dead. The deployment on Saturday came hours after the United States announced that Israel and Syria have agreed to a ceasefire, a fragile truce amid overnight clashes. Syria's government announced the ceasefire early on Saturday, saying in a statement it is being enacted to spare Syrian blood, preserve the unity of Syrian territory, the safety of its people. Syria's President Ahmed al-Shara, in a televised address, stated that he received international calls to intervene in what is happening in Sweda and restore security to the country. Israeli forces persist in targeting Hamas in Gaza with recent strikes. The Israeli military said early Sunday it fired warning shots at suspects posing threats in Rafah, denying direct attacks on aid seekers. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, now managing aid distribution, blames Hamas for inciting unrest. Tensions remain as ceasefire talks falter, underscoring Israel's ongoing campaign to dismantle Hamas's presence in the region. And Sudan's Prime Minister Kamel Idris, on his first visit to Khartoum since taking office in May, pledged to rebuild the capital devastated by over 2 years of war between the army and rapid support forces. The conflict, starting in April 2023, killed tens of thousands and displaced 3.5 million. Idris outlined plans for mass repairs, including the Al Jali refinery, as the army recaptured Khartoum in March. Despite ongoing fighting in Sudan's west and south, the government aims to restore services and return ministries. Sudan faces severe hunger and displacement crisis, with 25 million in food insecurity and a cholera outbreak worsening the conditions. Now in Central Africa, Congo and Rwanda-backed rebels on Saturday signed a declaration of principles in Qatar to end decades-long fighting in eastern Congo. The declaration commits a permanent ceasefire and a comprehensive peace agreement within 1 month. The agreement follows a separate Congolese-Rwandan peace deal signed in Washington last month. It is the first direct commitment by both Congo and the rebels since they seized 2 key cities in eastern Congo in a major advance.
The Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda-backed armed group M23 signed a ceasefire deal on Saturday to end fighting that has devastated the country's mineral-rich but conflict-torn east. The truce was agreed in a declaration of principle signed by the two sides after 3 months of talks in the Qatari capital, Doha, which follows a separate Congolese-Rwandan peace deal signed in Washington last month. The agreement says the parties commit to uphold their commitment to a permanent ceasefire, including refraining from hate propaganda and any attempt to seize by force new positions. The deal says the two sides had agreed to implement its terms by July 29th at the latest and to start direct negotiations towards a permanent agreement by August 8th. It also includes a roadmap for restoring state authority in eastern DRC. Congolese government spokesperson Patrick Moyaya said the deal took account of DRC's red lines, including the non negotiable withdrawal of the M23 from the occupied areas, followed by the deployment of our institutions, including the National Armed Forces. He said a comprehensive peace agreement would follow in the coming days. Qatar's Minister of State at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Mohammed bin Abdulaziz Al Khulaifi, and Donald Trump's Special Advisor for Africa and Middle East, Massad Boulous, welcomed the ceasefire deal.
This declaration not only represents a commitment to stop the violence, but also constitutes a pivotal step and a practical roadmap towards national reconciliation. It lays the groundwork for a new phase of partnership among the various components of society in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, including armed movements that have chosen to prioritize the greater national interest. It also opens the way for an effective role for the international community to support peace-building efforts and promote sustainable development in conflict-affected areas.
We are confident and we are hopeful. As indicated earlier this morning, I had very fruitful discussions this week with both Presidents Tshisekedi and President Kagame, and I really would like to thank them for their full commitment. They have both shown full commitment towards this peace, towards this process, towards ending this conflict peacefully, and towards the prosperity of the region.
The African Union hailed the new deal as a significant development. In a statement, AU chairperson Mahmoud Ali Yusuf said, "This marks a major milestone in the ongoing efforts to achieve lasting peace, security and stability in eastern DRC and the wider Great Lakes region." Backed by neighboring Rwanda, the M23 is the most prominent of more than 100 armed groups fighting for control in Congo's mineral-rich east. It seized vast swaths of mineral-rich territory in eastern DRC and captured the key provincial capitals of Goma and Bukavu in a lightning offensive in January and February this year. Thousands were killed in this offensive. Rich in natural resources, especially lucrative minerals, eastern DRC has been racked by conflict for more than 3 decades, creating a humanitarian crisis and forcing hundreds of thousands of people from their homes, which the UN called one of the most protracted, complex, serious humanitarian crises on earth. Raghav Kumar Jha for DD India.
Shifting focus now, Japanese voters head to the polls on Sunday in a tightly contested upper house election with rising prices and immigration concerns threatening to weaken Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba's grip on power. Voting officially began at 7 local time, barring certain regions. Polling will remain open until 8 local time, 8 p.m. I should say. The House of Councillors is made up of 248 members with 6-year terms. Elections are held every 3 years with half the seats up for grabs each time. Voters are weighing in on a total of 125 seats, including one where a contest is needed to fill a vacancy. Opinion polls suggest Ishiba's Liberal Democratic Party and coalition partner Komieto may fall short of 50 seats needed to retain control of 248-seat upper house of the parliament. Ishiba's administration lost its majority in the more powerful lower house in October. The polls show smaller opposition parties pushing for tax cuts and increased public spending are set to gain, among them the right-wing Sanseto, which vows to curb immigration, oppose foreign capital inflows and reverse gender equality moves. After the election, Japan faces a deadline of August 1st to strike a trade deal with the United States or face punishing tariffs in its largest export market. All right, DD India Shubhendu Ghosh has been tracking the story. He is joining us live from Delhi. Good morning, Shubhendu. First of all, tell us what's at stake for Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba, and how crucial are these elections for his political future?
Good morning, Abhishek. That's right. Hugely significant elections taking place in Japan for the upper house. And for Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba, these are very, very crucial personally as well as politically. As you mentioned in the update, that at present he leads a minority government in the lower house. They lost the majority. A quick political recap. Beginning of October last year, Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba takes charge, the leadership of his party, Liberal Democratic Party as well, calls for elections. And by the end of October, when the elections happen, they lose the majority in the lower house, making the functioning of their government very difficult in very testing times for Japanese economy hit by inflation. Now, as the opinion polls show that right now, 125 seats of the upper house are going for elections. Liberal Democratic Party, led by Ishiba, needs at least 50 seats to retain the majority in the upper house. Opinion polls show that they are going to fall short of it. Now, if they fall short, lose the majority in the upper house, it may not bring down the government immediately, but it will be a big setback for Prime Minister Ishiba. His own standing within the party, he hasn't been able to lead the party to a majority in the lower house, and if a similar fate follows in the upper house, calls are going to become louder for his own position and power within the party. So in that case, personally, within the party, as Prime Minister, it's a crucial litmus test for Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba. The government will continue to work on. He will have to compromise with other opposition parties to take forward his reforms at a time when Japan is going through very crucial times, both domestically as well as in global economic setup. So in that sense, what happens in these elections are going to determine what kind of political and economic future can Japan look forward to.
Okay, Shubhendu, you said litmus test for Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba. Testing times for Japanese economy and elections happening at a very crucial time. What are the key issues driving voters to the polls, Shubhendu, and who are the main players, if you could tell us, in contention?
Right, Abhishek, at the heart of it is the cost of living. Past many weeks, what has made news coming out of Japan is the rising cost of living for ordinary Japanese people. The cost of rice, for example, is a staple diet in Japan. The cost of rice has doubled in the last year or so. The supply chain of rice has been challenging. So access to basic diet has been challenging for an advanced economy like Japan. Inflation is at a 2-year high at about 3%. There's also a shrinking population. At the heart of it, those very fundamentals of any economy are presenting worrying signs for Japan. Also vis-a-vis United States, which is a very important major export destination for Japan. President Donald Trump's tariffs are waiting for the deadline of 1st of August. The deal talks have been stalled. These elections are taking place at the moment. Japan is a major exporter of automobiles to America, over $150 billion worth of exports taking place there, and 25% tariff is going to be a huge setback for a Japanese economy. There are also certain populist concerns. Immigration is an issue. Some 1 million workers are there in Japan to assist in different vocations given the shrinking population. But the political opposition to the rights given, to property rights given to these immigrants are also a matter of concern. So the Japanese society, Japanese economy going through a major flux, and these elections therefore come at a time when the voters in their choices are going to determine what kind of policies could the country go ahead with. But for Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba, it is going to be a tough walk forward if the opinion polls are realized into real results and his party loses the majority, his alliance loses the majority. It will be more difficult for him to move forward with his reforms.
All right, Shubhendu, we'll leave it at that. Thank you for the time being, but yes, we'll keep taking updates from you. Australia's island state of Tasmania appeared on Sunday to be heading for a minority government as vote counting continued after an election that did not produce a clear winner. The Conservative Liberal government was on track to win more seats than the main Labour opposition in the new parliament, but would probably fall short of a majority after Saturday's election. The Liberals' strong performance under Jeremy Rockcliffe, Premier since 2022, follows a heavy defeat suffered at May's national election, which returned Anthony Albanese-led Labour for the second term with an increased majority. The only Australian state to elect its lower house on the basis of proportional representation, Tasmania has a long history of minority governments. Wilderness or protected areas make up 40% of the island, which is 445 kilometres away from Melbourne, usually requiring a flight of an hour or a ferry crossing 10 times longer to cover the distance. We are slipping into a very short break, but still to come on this edition of DD India News Hour. Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva condemns US visa sanctions on Supreme Federal Court judges. At least 30 injured after a car plows into crowd outside music venue in Los Angeles. And damage mounts in South Korea as torrential rains enter its 5th day.
This week, we meet people who are confronting complex environmental challenges. They are trying to find smart and steady ways to restore balance.
One of the projects for BNHS is to conservation breeding of falcons and goshawk, and then release that population after breeding, release that population back in the urban atmosphere like Mumbai.
We're trying to widen and deepen the rivers to increase water flow capacity. But residents must help too, by preventing the accumulation of garbage, which is a problem across Jakarta.
In this NFT channel, we use net cups with cocoa peats on it. This helps to penetrate the roots. There will be nutritious water flowing through the channel that supplies essential nutrients for the plant, and the remaining nutritious water gets channeled back to the water tank.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Some more stories. Kiev has proposed to Moscow a new round of peace talks next week. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said on Saturday, hours after Russian strikes across Ukraine claimed more lives. 2 rounds of talks in Istanbul between Moscow and Kiev have failed to result in any progress towards a ceasefire, instead yielding large-scale prisoner exchanges and deals to return the bodies of killed soldiers. At talks last month, Russia outlined a list of hardline demands, including calls for Ukraine to cede more territory and to reject all forms of Western military support. Kiev dismissed them as unacceptable and at the time questioned the point of further negotiations if Moscow was not willing to make concessions. The Kremlin said earlier this month it was ready to continue talks with Ukraine after US President Donald Trump gave Russia 50 days to strike a peace deal or face sanctions. Trump also pledged to supply Kiev with new military aid sponsored by NATO allies as its cities suffer ever-increasing Russian aerial attacks. The European Union on Friday agreed an 18th package of sanctions on Moscow that targets Russian banks and lowers a price cap on oil exports in a bid to curb its ability to fund the conflict. Now, Zelensky has reiterated his readiness to have a face-to-face sit-down with Putin.
Security Council Secretary Umerov also reported that he had proposed the next meeting with the Russian side for next week. The momentum of the negotiations must be increased. Everything must be done to achieve a ceasefire. And the Russian side must stop hiding from decisions.
All right, DD India's Akshay Dongre has more information on this. He joins us live from New Delhi. Actually, the last 2 rounds of negotiations held in Istanbul did not lead to any breakthroughs. Zelensky has now proposed fresh peace talks next week. Tell us, what are we expecting?
Well, as far as the proposal of peace talks and face-to-face negotiation or rather talks with the Russian President Vladimir Putin is concerned, it's highly unlikely that there will be any change in that, because there have been expectations for a long time now that both the leaders of Russia and Ukraine will be going and having a negotiation to get sitting face-to-face, but that has been so far been turned down by the Kremlin, by the Russian side. As of now, as far as these peace talks are concerned, both the sides still remain, stuck to their original demands as far as the conflict is concerned. Including the Russian side that has been calling for these territories of Ukraine. Or rather has been demanding the territories of Ukraine to either be free or to rather be, in a way annexed with Russia, especially when we talk about the bordering areas where the Russian-speaking population is in majority. And those people, including in Kherson, in Donbass, in Donetsk, and in Crimea as well, have been, their opinion has also been cited by the Russian side as far as the widespread demands that have been there to rather annex or rather be unified with Russia once again. So that has been the Russian statements, whereas Ukraine has fundamentally rejected all of these demands of ceding territory or continuous or continued hostilities between the two countries. So while the Russian side is, according to Ukraine, calling for more territory and ceding any kind of support from the Western allies, that seems still unlikely. In the face of the increasing attacks by the both sides. But there are multiple angles to it, with Donald Trump calling for 50-day deadline for peace talks or rather ceasefire between the two countries, to Russia's demand, and to Ukraine calling for territories that have already been invaded by the Russian side. So everyone still remains on the original demands that are finding it difficult for a serious negotiation to take place between the two countries.
Akshay, also, has there been any reaction from Moscow, and how is this development being viewed, especially in Europe and the US?
Well, the US side has been clear. The US, under the presidency of Donald Trump, has been calling for a ceasefire. In fact, taking a softer stance towards the Russian side. That is the US. But now, with the continuous hostility, it seems that Donald Trump had hoped the ceasefire that Donald Trump had hoped for through a phone call is not going as per the plan. So that is perhaps the reason why US is also toughening its stand, while the European Union has been continuously supporting the Ukrainian side as far as the conflict is concerned. Whereas if you talk about Russia, there has been no confirmation or no official word as far as a discussion or a dialogue between Vladimir Putin and Volodymyr Zelensky. So they have not accepted it. They have not talked about it. So it seems a unilateral demand as of now. But for the conflict to come down, the both sides will have to cede certain things that the adversary is calling for. For example, when it comes to Russia, the original demand and the biggest point where the conflict started, where the 2 points have been stuck, is Ukraine's applications or rather ambitions to be included in the NATO countries. So that was one. The second was obviously the Western weaponry coming into Ukraine that ultimately threatens Moscow. So these demands will have to be ceded by both the sides unless there is a concerted efforts by the top leadership of the Russian side as well as the Ukraine. The ceasefire and talks and bringing now hostilities still remain a far-fetched dream.
All right, Akshay, we'll leave it at that. Thank you for your inputs. Moving on, Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva condemned U.S. visa sanctions on Supreme Federal Court judges, including Alexander de Moraes, involved in the coup case against former President Jair Bolsonaro. Lula called the U.S. move arbitrary and a violation of sovereignty. The U.S. revoked visas for Moraes and allies, citing a political witch hunt against Bolsonaro, who faces trial for allegedly trying to overturn Lula's 2022 election win. Moraes ordered Bolsonaro to wear an electronic monitor and avoid social media. The judge also noted Eduardo Bolsonaro's hostile social media attacks, including calling Moraes a gangster in robes, as escalating illicit conduct amid the ongoing legal battle. And the Trump administration's decision to slash nearly all U.S. foreign aid has left dozens of water and sanitation projects half-finished across the globe, creating new hazards for some of the people they were designed to benefit. In Kenya's Taita Taveta, a largely rural county that has endured cyclical drought and flooding, workers had only managed to build brick walls along 220 meters of the 3.1-kilometer irrigation canal, where they ordered to stop. The community has asked the Kenyan government and international donors to help finish the job at a projected cost of $526,000. The Trump administration and its supporters argue that the United States should spend its money to benefit Americans at home rather than sending it abroad, and say USAID had strayed from its original mission by funding projects like LGBT rights in Serbia. And 10 U.S. citizens who were detained in Venezuela landed in El Salvador Friday as part of a coordinated prisoner exchange with the South American nation. The released Americans were welcomed by the U.S. Special Envoy for Hostage Response, Adam Boher, and El Salvador President Nayib Bukele at the presidential house in San Salvador. In a post on X, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio thanked Bukele for his help in securing the agreement. In exchange, Venezuela's government said 252 Venezuelans held in El Salvador were freed. Senior U.S. officials also said 80 domestic political prisoners in Venezuela would be freed, although the Venezuelan government referred only to alternative detention measures in its statement. Now, the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement is racing to build migrant tent camps nationwide, aiming to expand detention capacity from 40,000 to 100,000 beds by year end. The ICE is prioritizing large-scale tent facilities at military bases and ICE jails, including the sites in Texas, Colorado, Indiana, and New Jersey. Officials of the U.S. Homeland Security have expressed the preference for detention centers run by Republican states and local governments rather than private prison companies. Early this month, the U.S. Senate passed a budget reconciliation bill that includes a fund of $45 billion for building new immigration detention centers. A 29-year-old man named Fernando Ramirez has been charged on suspicion of assault with a deadly weapon after deliberately driving into a crowd outside the Vermont Hollywood nightclub early Saturday, injuring 30 people. The incident, deemed intentional by police, followed Ramirez's ejection from the club. Bystanders attacked and shot him. He is in custody post-surgery. Police say the gunman who fled. 7 victims are in critical condition, 6 in serious. Over 100 firefighters responded. Mayor Karen Bass called it a heartbreaking tragedy, and the club expressed sorrow. The Nissan Versa hit a taco truck and valet stand near Sunset Boulevard, leaving a blood-stained scene. Now in Germany, 19 people were injured after a fireworks show went awry at a Düsseldorf city fair on Friday night. At least 1 child was injured and 4 others were seriously injured after fireworks exploded unusually low. Eyewitness video showed a thick cloud of smoke during the fireworks display. Düsseldorf Fire Services said that police were investigating the cause of the accident. 100 people protest in Ciudad Juarez, northern Mexico, over the case of 386 bodies found piled up in a private crematory at the end of June. Police officers found the bodies unprocessed and stacked, which prosecutorial authorities attributed to negligence on the part of businesses' managers. At the time, many relatives were given ashes, although many now doubt their authenticity. All the bodies had been embalmed. Authorities estimated that some of the remains could have been there for up to 2 years. Mexico, a country hard hit by organized crime, has been suffering for years from a crisis in its forensic system, saturated by the high number of bodies to be processed, the lack of personnel and budgetary restrictions. Now, Sri Lanka's National Police Commission has sacked Nilantha Jayawardena, the former head of the State Intelligence Service, for failing to act on warnings before the 2019 Easter Sunday bombings, which killed 279 people, including 45 foreigners. A disciplinary inquiry found him guilty of negligence, ignoring alerts about Islamic extremist attacks 17 days prior to the April 21st suicide bombings targeting hotels and churches. A prior investigation implicated then-President Mathurapala Sirisena and officials, including Jayawardena, for lapses warranting prosecution. The new government, led by President Anura Kumara Dissanayake, pledges to intensify probes into the attacks blamed on a local jihadi group tied to the Islamic State to ensure justice. A tourist boat carrying 53 people capsized on Saturday in Vietnam, following which at least 38 people have died and 8 remain missing. The incident took place in Quang Ninh province of Ha Long Bay, a popular tourist destination in the north of the country. The vessel was carrying 48 passengers and 5 crew members when it capsized in the UNESCO World Heritage Site because of sudden heavy rain. There was no official announcement on the nationality of the tourists as emergency crews kept looking for the survivors. Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh sent his condolences to the families of the deceased and called on the Defence and Public Security Ministries to conduct urgent search and rescue. Moving on, Hong Kong issued a T8 tropical cyclone warning early Sunday as Typhoon Vifa, located 280 kilometers southeast, approached, bringing winds over 63 kilometers an hour. The storm intensifying in the South China Sea, prompting high alerts. Over 250 flights were cancelled with no departures before noon Sunday per Hong Kong's airport authority. Cathay Pacific Airways cancelled all of its flights arriving or departing Hong Kong airport between 5 a.m. and 6 p.m. on Sunday. It waived ticket change fees and made arrangements for customers to rebook. Schools and daycare centres suspended classes and bus services halted until midday. Heavy rain and thunderstorms are expected with high seas forecast. In Philippines, Vifa caused flooding, leaving 2 missing. Authorities urge caution as the storm threatens significant disruptions across the region, with travellers advised to expect delays. Torrential rains that lashed South Korea for a 5th day on Sunday kept nearly 3,000 people from returning to their homes. Rain is forecast to last until Monday in some areas as officials urge extreme caution against the risk of landslides and flooding, with warnings issued across most of the country. The downpour started on Wednesday and has resulted in 14 deaths, with 12 people missing, mostly in the southern and central part of the country. Rainfall since Wednesday reached a record of more than 500 mm at Seosan in the South Chungcheong province south of Seoul. Moving on, the CEO of an American tech company resigned Saturday after a video of him embracing an alleged colleague at a Coldplay concert on Wednesday went viral and fueled relentless memes. Astronomer CEO Byron and company's chief people officer Christine Cabot realized they were being shown on a jumbo screen inside Gillette stadiums as they embraced. Byron ducked out of sight and Cabot covered her face with her hands and spun around. Internet sleuths immediately went to work and identified Byron and Cabot by their social media profiles before the company confirmed their identities. The video has garnered millions of views on TikTok and other social media, giving rise to memes discussing everything from the folly of having an affair at a Coldplay concert to the hypocrisy of an HR representative seemingly caught in a workplace relationship. Still to come on this edition of DD India News Hour. The free trade agreement between India and the European Free Trade Association to come into force from October 1st. Government calls all-party meeting ahead of the monsoon session of the Parliament. And we'll get you weather updates across multiple states in India.
Jharkhand will mesmerize you with majestic nature, rich heritage and colorful culture.
Hello. Johar.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Recap of our top stories. Sectarian clashes escalate in Syria's predominantly Druze region of Sweda a day after ceasefire announcement. Ukraine seeks new round of talks with Russia next week. Zelensky says that the Russian side should stop hiding from decisions. Japan head to the polls on Sunday in a tightly contested upper house election. Rising prices and immigration concerns threatening to weaken Prime Minister Ishiba's power grip. Dozens dead after tourist boat capsizes in Vietnam due to storm Vifa. The third typhoon to hit the South China Sea this year is projected to make landfall along Vietnam's northern coast early next week. Astronomer CEO Andy Byron resigns after Coldplay concert Embrace goes viral. The free trade agreement between India and the European Free Trade Association will come into force from October 1st. India and the four-nation European bloc EFTA signed the Trade and Economic Partnership Agreement on March 10, 2024. Under the pact, India has received an investment commitment of $100 billion in 15 years from the grouping, while allowing several products at lower or zero duties. The European Free Trade Association members are Iceland, Liechtenstein, Norway and Switzerland. The bloc has committed an investment of $100 billion, $50 billion within 10 years after the implementation of the agreement, and another $50 billion in the next 5 years, which would facilitate the creation of 1 million direct jobs in India.
All the four countries have ratified the FTA, lodged their documents with the repository, which was Norway, and from 1st October, EFTA will come into effect. And they are taking it seriously. They are continuously looking at India as an investment destination.
Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar reiterated India's stand on terrorism, addressing the officer trainees of Indian Defence Estate Services 2024 batch at the Vice President's enclave on Saturday. Vice President Dhankar said that 22nd April was a day when India's soul was challenged. India has always stood for inclusivity that was sought to be shredded and trashed by the perpetrators of crime, the terrorists from across the border. India always stood for peace, harmony, but would not spare the terrorists.
22nd April was a day when India's soul was challenged. Bharat has always stood for inclusivity. That was sought to be shredded and thrashed by perpetrators of crime, the terrorists from across the border. But what is more remarkable, boys and girls, is that India's culture all through has been that issues have to be determined by diplomacy and dialogue. There is no room for terrorism in the world. We have advocated throughout zero tolerance for terrorism.
And the Indian government has called an all-party meeting today ahead of the monsoon session of the Parliament beginning on Monday. During the meeting, the government will seek cooperation from all the political parties to ensure the smooth functioning of both houses of the Parliament. The monsoon session, which will be held from 21st of this month, will continue till 21st of August. During this session, there will be a total of 21 sittings of both houses. Talking to the media, Parliamentary Affairs Minister Kiran Rijiju said that the government is ready to discuss important issues to be raised in Parliament.
कुछ वर्तमान काल में ऐसे मुद्दे हैं जिस पे सांसद चर्चा करना चाहते हैं, तो एडवांस में हमें भी कहा है और कल ऑल पार्टी मीटिंग भी है, उसमें अपना बात रखेंगे। तो बहुत महत्वपूर्ण जो मुद्दे हैं उस पे भी चर्चा तो होगी। सरकार भी महत्वपूर्ण मुद्दे हैं उस पे चर्चा के लिए आगे आएंगे। और कई बिल्स हैं जो इस सत्र में आएंगे। वैसे तो बिजनेस एडवाइजरी कमेटी में ही तय होगा समय वगैरह, फिर भी मोटे मोटे जैसे शिपिंग बिल है, पोर्ट्स बिल है, मर्चेंट बिल्स हैं, स्पोर्ट्स का बिल है और जन विश्वास बिल है, एजुकेशन का, कई महत्वपूर्ण बिल्स हैं जो इस मानसून सत्र में आने वाले हैं.
All right, DD India's Dibyendu Mondal joins us live to tell us more on this. Dibyendu, good morning. All-party meeting ahead of the monsoon session today. How significant is this meeting in setting the tone for the monsoon session?
Good morning, Abhishek. That's right. You know, the Parliament session, the monsoon session of Parliament is expected to begin from tomorrow. It will be a month-long sitting of both the houses of Parliament, including both the upper house and the lower house. And, you know, the monsoon session, which was earlier expected to end on the 12th of August, has now been extended till the 21st of August. And there will be a short break in between, that is from the 12th, in fact, from the 13th till the 18th, after which, you know, because of the Independence Day and Raksha Bandhan celebration, there will be a short break. And then again, the monsoon session will begin from the 19th to 21st. So it begins on the 21st of July and ends on the 21st of August. Now, you know, the all-party meeting that you have spoken about, it's absolutely very, very important because this sets the tone for the session as to what is expected of the outcomes of this sitting of the Parliament. And it is a custom where the Parliamentary Affairs Minister meets with all the political floor leaders of all the political parties, giving them an understanding of how the government plans to conduct this monsoon session and what are the bills that are likely to come up for discussion. However, as we have just heard also from the Parliamentary Affairs Minister Kiran Rijiju talking about, you know, the Business Advisory Committee that finally decides on the bills that are likely to come up. But however, the government does set an agenda. And, you know, the most important part of this all-party meeting is ensuring that the government, you know, brings all the political parties together on a single table to ensure that, you know, the smooth functioning of the Parliament is carried out during the session. And therefore, you know, the ruckus is less and more of business happens in both the houses of Parliament. Because remember, Abhishek, parliamentary proceedings are extremely important for the development of a nation, and that is what the government is trying through this outreach program.
Yes, absolutely. We also heard Kiran Rijiju speaking about the bills expected to be taken up during this monsoon session starting tomorrow, that is 21st July, and it will go on till 21st of August. And like Dibyendu also said, there will be a break of 5 days from 13th to 18th. All right, Dibyendu, we'll leave it at that. Thank you for your inputs. Union Home Minister Amit Shah informed that investments worth over rupees 1 lakh crore have been grounded in Uttarakhand in the past 2 years. Amit Shah addressed the Uttarakhand Investment Festival 2025 organized in Rudrapur on Saturday and the inauguration and the foundation laying ceremony of various development projects worth rupees 1,271 crore by the state government. Amit Shah said that his government was committed to the development of state, enabling them to attract industries and generate employment. Uttarakhand Chief Minister Pushkar Singh Dhami said that terrorism and Naxalism no longer dare to raise their heads in the country, crediting the nation's leadership for creating a secure environment that supports economic growth and investment. Dhami described the event as a historic moment for the state's development. The advisory requiring the lowering of window shades during aircraft operations at Indian Air Force joint use airports have been withdrawn. However, the ban on aerial and ground photography at these airports remain in effect. In a statement, the Directorate General of Civil Aviation emphasized on Saturday that the prohibition on aerial and ground photography continues to apply to all aircraft operation at IAF JUAS. Earlier this month, the DGCA took a significant step to raise the standards of pilot training in India. On July 9, the aviation regulator formally launched a national ranking framework for flying training organizations with the aim of improving transparency, consistency, and performance across the sector. The initiative aims to ensure standardization, safety, and accountability in India's aviation training sector. The ranking system will be implemented as of October 1st, 2025, and rankings will be published twice a year on April 1st and October 1st to provide timely and updated evaluations of FTO performance. Chief of Naval Staff Admiral Dinesh K. Tripathi addressed students and faculty at Thakur Ranmat Singh College, Rewa on Saturday. He shared insights from his 4-decade naval journey. Speaking of the critical role of youth in building Viksit Bharat 2047 through leadership, courage and teamwork, Admiral Tripathi inspired the young leaders to dream big and strive for excellence, embracing failure as a stepping stone towards success. Emphasizing the role of the students as the architect of tomorrow, Viksit Bharat 2047, he urged students to read, reflect, write and lead with purpose, highlighting India's rich maritime legacy and maritime strength from ancient ports of Lothal to modern naval operations. Chief of Naval Staff emphasized that India's future lies across the oceans and highlighted the crucial role and responsibilities the Indian Navy has towards safeguarding the national interest by ensuring maritime security and safety. Indian Navy's indigenously designed and constructed survey vessel large INS Sandhaya crew visited their National Hydrographic Center in Malaysia. They were received by DG Hydrography and senior officials. During the meeting, discussions were held on hydrographic history, data capturing methods and joint operational roles in reinforcing India-Malaysia maritime synergy. The visit reaffirmed India's commitment to regional maritime cooperation. Weather updates now. Delhi is witnessing a pleasant Sunday morning. The India Met Department recorded scattered showers across the national capital on Friday, which kept daytime temperatures below the seasonal average. The city will witness grey skies with intermittent rainfall until at least July 25th. While no weather warnings have been issued, humidity levels are expected to rise owing to limited rainfall. Uttar Pradesh bore the brunt of monsoon fury as rain-related incidents claimed 18 lives, with the IMD issuing alerts for heavy rain in Himachal Pradesh, West Bengal and Kerala. While torrential rain caused a flood-like situation in parts of Rajasthan, heavy rainfall and landslides in some areas of Arunachal Pradesh and Sikkim affected normal life. Also in Uttarakhand, a red alert for heavy rainfall on Sunday in parts of Kumaon region has been issued by the Met Department. Time now for another short break, but still to come on this edition of DD India News Hour. India's top chess players eye semi-final spot as Game 2 of the quarterfinals of FIDE Women's World Cup begins on Sunday. India lose to England by 8 wickets in rain-marred match at Lord's. And hundreds participate in Pedal Through Paradise cyclothon in Srinagar.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Business updates now. The Trump administration said on Saturday it is taking a series of actions against Mexico over the Mexican government's decision to re-sign some flight slots for U.S. carriers and force U.S. cargo carriers to relocate operations in Mexico City. In a statement, U.S. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy said that the department could disapprove flight requests from Mexico if the government fails to address U.S. concerns over decisions made in 2022 and 23. The department is also proposing to withdraw antitrust immunity from Delta Airlines joint venture with Aero Mexico to address competitive issues in the market. It also said that Mexico has not been in compliance with a bilateral air agreement since 2022 when it abruptly resigned its slots and then forced U.S. all-cargo carriers to relocate operations in 2023. Sports updates now. We'll start with tennis. Alexander Bublik is set to face Juan Manuel Cerúndolo in the final of the Swiss Open on Sunday. Bublik reached his maiden ATP Tour level clay court final with a 6-1 7-5 over France's Arthur Cazot. Bublik will meet Cerúndolo, who secured a commanding straight set win over Ignacio Buzet in the semi-finals. Cerundolo knocked out top seed Casper Ruud in the quarters to record the biggest win of his career. It will be Cerundolo's first final since winning the 2021 Cordoba Open title in his home country. Cricket now. England's women cricket team defeated India by 8 wickets in the rain-affected second ODI at the iconic Lord's Cricket Ground. After a disappointing loss in the first ODI, England women's cricket team bounced back in style to level the series 1-1. The match was reduced to 29 overs per side due to rain. Batting first, India managed to put just 143 runs on the board. England were close to chasing the target, but rain poured down again and the target was reduced to 115 in 24 overs. England chased the target in 21 overs with opener Amy Jones scoring unbeaten 46. The third and final game will be played at Chesterley Street on Tuesday. And Sports Minister of India Dr. Mansukh Mandaviya led this special edition Nasha Mukt Yuva for Viksit Bharat of Nationwide Fit India Sundays on cycle from Banaras Hindu University campus in Varanasi. The 32nd edition of the event was organized at 6,000 locations across the country in partnership with several educational institutions including Central Board of Secondary Education. The event aimed to raise awareness against substance abuse and promote an active and healthy lifestyle among people.
6,000 से अधिक स्थानों पर देश की विविध एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूट ने संडे ऑन साइकिल में भाग लिया है। संडे ऑन साइकिल देश में मूवमेंट के रूप में एक अभियान के रूप में चल रहा है। साइकिलिंग फिटनेस का मंत्र है। साइकिलिंग पोल्यूशन का सॉल्यूशन है।
The serene surroundings of Dal Lake came alive with energy and enthusiasm as Jammu and Kashmir Armed Police organized Pedal Through Paradise Cyclothon on Sunday. The event, which has become an annual tradition, drew participants from all walks of life. The cyclothon aimed to promote fitness, healthy living and positive engagement among the people. Hundreds of cycling enthusiasts were seen cycling along the scenic route around the famous Dal Lake. And India's Koneru Hampi, Harika Dronawali, Vaishali Ramesh Babu and Divya Deshmukh will be in action in Game 2 of the quarterfinals of FIDE Women's World Cup on Sunday. Koneru Hampi registered a crucial win while Vaishali, Divya and Harika played out draws in Game 1 on Saturday. Hampi only needs a draw on Sunday to become the first ever Indian woman to reach the semi-finals. The experienced Harika held youngster Divya to a draw while Vaishali secured a draw against China's Tan Zhongye. The World Cup offers 3 spots to the FIDE Women's Candidates Tournament, which will take place in the first half of 2026. And July 20th is celebrated as International Chess Day. The day not only honors the birth of International Chess Federation in 1924, but reflects on the rich legacy and global impact of a game that has stood the test of time. This year's celebration carried a deeper message of inclusion, empowerment and social growth. Here's more.
From ancient India to the global stage, chess continues to evolve not just as a sport, but as a force for education, equality and mental strength. The theme for International Chess Day 2025 is Every Move Counts, serving as an apt reminder that every decision can shape the amazing journey called life. Celebrated annually on July 20, International Chess Day marks the foundation of the International Chess Federation in 1924. After celebrating 100 years in 2024, FIDE entered a new era, with 2025 being declared the Year of Social Chess. Through Year of Social Chess, International Chess Federation has underlined the immensely important role chess can play for social inclusion, education, empowerment and well-being.
There's a quote by the Grandmaster that one bad move nullifies 40 good moves. See, one bad move just ends the game. So in life and in chess, both, every move counts. If you make one bad decision in life also, then you have to suffer the consequences. So likewise, you have to play all the good moves in chess and in life.
The amazing game of 64 squares traces its roots in ancient India. It all began as Chaturanga, the ancient Indian strategy board game. It evolved to the present-day board game that continues to captivate people across the globe. India remains at the heart of this global chess revolution. Over the past year, Indian chess has scripted history. At the 45th Chess Olympiad in Budapest, both the men's and women's teams clinched double gold, a first for the nation. D. Gukesh became the youngest world chess champion, while Divya Deshmukh clinched individual gold at Chess Olympiad. Vantika Agarwal, who contributed to India's team triumph at the 19th Asian Games, was conferred the Arjuna Award 2024. Gukesh was awarded the Major Dhyan Chand Khel Ratna, India's highest sporting honor. Veteran Koneru Hampi added another chapter to her illustrious career, clinching her second Women's World Rapid Chess Championship, while Arjun Erigaisi, part of the gold medal winning team in Budapest, crossed the elite 2800 ELO mark, becoming only the second Indian to do so.
The game of chess is deeply embedded in the history of India and the world. Now, on the occasion of International Chess Day, let's look at some interesting facts about chess.
About 70% of the adult population in US, UK, Germany, Russia, India has played chess at some point in their lives. 605 million adults play chess regularly. Mathematically, there are more possible games of chess than there are atoms in the observable universe. It is possible to checkmate an opponent in 2 moves. The oldest chess grandmaster was Yuri Auerbach, who lived to be 100 years old. The United Nations recognizes chess as a global game that promotes education, sustainable development, peace, and understanding among people. It's a tool for inclusion, aligning with the goals of 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda.
From the past to the future, chess remains a game of skill, strategy, and silent power. As India leads from the front, this International Chess Day reminds us all that indeed, every move counts. With cameraman Ajit Kumar, this is Meher Raj Singh for DD India, Delhi.
And that's all we have in this edition of DD India News Hour. But do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now.